Welcome back to a brand new episode of Blades and Beskar. I am your host, Jeremy Bloor, and you've obviously seen the thumbnail, so you know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. I am talking about my favorite ever designed character slash monster, whatever the fuck you want to call them, ever created in any fictional universe ever created. That's a lot of ever createds. I'm talking about the Balrog. The Balrog is personally, for me, one of the coolest looking monsters I have ever seen. Now, obviously, I'm talking about the movie depiction of the Balrog, but today I wanted to go into what Tolkien described the Balrog and compare that to what the movie appeared as. Now, obviously, Peter Jackson had the book's description to base a lot of what the appearance would be, but you'd be surprised on how much it actually differs. I mean, what I've got here is I've got a list of different kind of breakdowns, appearance, weapons, movement, power, all that kind of stuff, working through both different versions that we get to see in both the movies and the books. But before I go into any of that, I want to talk about the origin of the Balrog. Now, the Balrogs are corrupted Maiar. Now, Maiar are an angelic subspecies created by the Valar. Not too dissimilar from the Valar, but they are different. They are a corrupted subspecies, corrupted by Morgoth in the First Age. Now, Morgoth used these Balrogs to wage war against all of Middle-earth and the Valar itself. You can see them fighting Ungoliant in some of the most gruesome artworks depicted by fans, and a lot of beautiful fan art when it comes to that. It's just, it is one of the coolest additions, I personally believe, that Morgoth added into Middle-earth. Now, a lot of them were actually killed in this great war against the Valar, but some of them survived. Some of them lived, but in the depths of Middle-earth, in the caves and the mines of Moria, Khazad-dûm, all that kind of stuff. Like, obviously, I will go into the most famous Balrog of all time. But I just wanted to talk about just even the power level. Just know, before I get into anything, Balrogs are very similar to Valar, but they are not as powerful. You gotta, just put that one out there. Although they are seemingly the most powerful beings, I've got a tick on me. Although they are seemingly the most powerful beings that we've seen in the movies, the Valar are very, very much so more powerful and were triumphant in the Great War, which is why so little of them exist. It's kind of cool. They were actually counted by the hundreds. Think about that. It took Gandalf, oh god, I'll go into that, but Gandalf's fight, one of the most powerful wizards in Middle-earth, took him only one. He took down only one and he died in the fucking process. Imagine what it would have been like against hundreds of these. And multiple different variants and versions of this ungodly beast. So these corrupted Maiar by Morgoth, basically his army, all right? It's why Sauron never stood a chance against Morgoth. I mean, the sheer power that Morgoth had was incomparable. So let's talk about the appearance. So Tolkien's description, we'll bang that one out first because that is the original. That is the original depiction. So the appearance. Now, Balrogs were, in Tolkien's eyes, tall, menacing, and manlike, but huge. All right? Huge. Now, manlike, I mean they had arms and legs and torso, and they were shaped in the similar proportions to a man, but they were obviously very different, okay? They were appearing in a fiery form or cloaked in shadow. Now, that's not really something that we got to see too much until we saw Rings of Power. Obviously, CGI increased and everything got a little bit more expensive and the show got better and all that kind of stuff. What I love about all of this is we get to see a slightly different version of what the Balrogs could be. They weren't as tall and beasty and menacing as the movies. In Tolkien's eyes, they were just clouded in shadow, cloaked in darkness, with elements of fire. It was very much an elemental fire. It wasn't necessarily a clear appearance of fire. Weapons. Now everybody knows the big fiery whip, and just so you know, only sometimes they had swords. These great big long swords that we got to see in Durin's Bane. We'll talk about that guy later because that's the most famous Balrog. I mean, anyone knows. But yeah, they had these big, great fiery whips. Tolkien actually didn't exaggerate this one. It's very similar to what it was in the movies. But the sword itself, in Tolkien's description, the sword was of fire. I love that. I love that idea. I guess, to see something so menacing, it seems as though what Tolkien described it as was to control and to transform the things around them into these fiery weapons. Like it is a more elemental warrior. So let's talk about the movement, right? So in the books, the Balrogs could move at great speeds, far faster and far superior than anything known in that first age. They were seriously a force to be reckoned with. I mean, their massive bounding muscles could just charge towards any enemy. And I mean, if you think about that with those great big whips and swords, imagine some dude running at you at fucking 100 k's an hour. Now, it wasn't actually like specifically depicted at a certain speed, but to imagine someone running at you at 100 k's a fucking hour. That would be insane. Absolutely insane. So you got to think about this, right? Tall, dark, cloaked in shadow, a menacing, shadowy, fiery figure with a massive flaming sword and a whip and just running at you at great speed. You'd think, well, okay, he seems like he's got pretty much every single power scale going in his favor. Well, let's talk about the power. The power of a Balrog was only rivaled by that of a dragon. All right, think about Smaug. Think about how powerful Smaug was in that, oh, misty eye of the mountain below. So, sorry, I don't want to whip out the old Ed Sheeran on you, but it's pretty cool. Dragons were obviously very ferocious and powerful, but imagine that in the form of the Balrog. The dragons were limited in many other ways. I mean, by greed, and they had a lot more of a personality. So think about that pure bestial form of man just charging forth with seemingly unlimited power. It's Blades and Beskar. I got to add in a Star Wars thing. And just bounding at you with this incredible power. It's so foreign to think of something like that in a universe where it was so desolate of power that only Sauron could really survive. Really, really interesting. So the name, let's go into the name of what the Balrog means. So the name Balrog comes from the invented Sinderian language. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing this properly. Actually, Tolkien created all of the languages. He was a linguist. He created all of these languages himself. So every single language is a genuine spoken, written language. Really interesting. But it is part of the invented Sindarin language and translates to demon of power, or similar depiction, demon of might. Yeah. Think about just an angelic demon. The fallen, the devil. What I love about Tolkien is his, anything that kind of adds a biblical sense into it, I love. I absolutely love. Now, personally, myself, I am not a practicing Christian. I don't really have a lot of religious allegiance. I don't believe in any religion necessarily, but I'm not really. It doesn't matter. Not really the point. So Tolkien, when he was younger, he met C.S. Lewis. Now, he's the creator of Narnia. Now, everybody knows Narnia is basically just a biblical story. And his biblical influence really affected and shaped Middle-earth in itself. Tolkien was so fascinated by this biblical notion of demons and God and the devil and everything, right? With good rising, darkness has to rise to match it. Very similar in anything. George Lucas had the same kind of idea when it comes to Star Wars. It's a beautiful concept that really allows to more of a realistic undertone for people to understand in real life. You know what I mean? Like, we can relate to that by our understandings of the Bible and other religions that share similar beliefs and all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about the first mention. The first mention of the Balrog was in the Book of Lost Tales. They were described as lesser beings and counted by hundreds. Now, obviously, I was talking about that before. The Book of Lost Tales, that is in the Silmarillion. It's kind of the Silmarillion is a bunch of different stories and connections that Tolkien made in order to create the fictional universe of Lord of the Rings, and he put it all together into a book. I'm going to be reading that on Audible or Mandalore. I'm so keen. I am so unbelievably keen to talk to you guys about it. Like, actually, I can't wait to read it. I'm going to be reading. I've been working so much. I'm going to be reading. I'm going to be reading Heir to the Empire first, but don't worry, I will be getting to it, and I can't wait. So get ready for that one. I will alert everyone. A little bit of a fun fact as well. It actually took Gandalf 10 days. I was waiting. I was really waiting to be able to say this one. I wanted to wait until after, because I didn't want you to get a different idea of what it was. But it took Gandalf 10 days. 10 fucking days to defeat the Balrog of Khazad-dûm in the mines of Moria. I know, obviously, in the movies it felt like a split second, and then you had a montage of them fighting and so on. The time in the movies is so drastically different to that of the book. Like, even Gandalf, when he was looking for information about the ring, that was like 20 years or something like that. Like, Frodo was much older. He had been sitting with that ring under its influence for so long to be able to find that information took so long. So it is drastically understated in the movies, but just in the book, in Tolkien's description, that's why I wanted to put it at the end of this. It took him 10 days. Insane. That battle must have been, incredible. I wish we could even just get a movie just on that. You know what I mean? I would love to see, even if it was a short, like a short film or whatever you want to call it, like 15 minutes of just pure fighting. It'd be amazing. I wish that Peter Jackson kind of expanded on that a lot more. And obviously the most popular Balrog is Durin's Bane. Durin's Bane is the one that Gandalf fought in Khazad-dûm. Now, we actually got to see the creation of their name. A lot of Balrogs were nameless for so long, and it took their great battles to be able to name them. The most popular, I'm talking about within the fandom, of that is Durin's Bane. Now, in Rings of Power, we get to see Durin kind of beating down the walls and opening up into this huge chasm of rich deposit of mithril. Mithril to make them all rich, to be in countless generations of supreme wealth, where everyone needs it because they're creating the rings, all that kind of shit, right? When he breaks down that wall and he awakens the Balrog that has been hiding since the First Age. Given, and granted, they're in the Second Age. It's not really that long. But he was waiting there for a while. He was waiting there for a very long time. And he was sapping a lot of his energy from the mithril. You get to see all of the mithril light up with fire and power when he's harnessing. Oh god, it was so cool. I actually personally think that is one of the coolest scenes that Lord of the Rings has ever done. I'm a massive Dwarf fan, massive Balrog fan, so obviously I am very, very biased. Very biased. But I think that's pretty cool. So let's talk about the movie's interpretation. The appearance. Right, let's go appearance straight away. An enormous hulking beast towering above the Fellowship. massively exaggerated scale to impose that supreme threat. Now, obviously, in a movie, you're going to be have to working with. You can't work with the imagination as much as possible. You can't be like, and you think about this. Ooh, he's a shadowy cloaked figure. No. Like you have to visually and even with sound as well. You have to use as many senses as you can possibly use, and with that sound, with that gorgeous visual, you had to show something of supreme threat. You got to see this ginormous hulking beast roaring and just primordial beast, an elemental fire. Now you get to see that shadowy wings, right? I do admit you get to see that, and that's why we get into this next category. All right. So in the movie, the Balrog was given visible bat-like wings compared to Tolkien's vague description. Now, Tolkien's vague description of the wings, why I didn't want to put it into the description before, is because it wasn't necessarily as important until we describe about the movie. In Tolkien's description, it is. He said, quote, "Its wings spread from wall to wall. Its shadow reached out like two vast wings." Now, obviously, he said wings twice there, and I understand that, that is the obvious depiction of what it could be. But we kind of got to see that a little bit better in Rings of Power. He didn't really have those wings necessarily. He used the shadow as his wings. I thought that was a really cool idea, that maybe it could have transcended from that that shadowy type to just form into these bat-like wings. Maybe the potential of evolution to kind of grow and to become that fierce warrior in order to survive, which they have survived for so long. I mean, that one specifically had survived literally since the First Age. Pretty incredible stuff. So the wings itself, that was one of the biggest differences, the physicality of its wings, and I hope that in Rings of Power we do get to see a little bit more. Season 3, hopefully there's going to be a season 4 as well, because they've got a lot to get up to. Basically, and this is what my mate said. He was like, my best mate. He was like, dude, it's going to be at the end of Rings of Power. It's going to get up to the scene where Isildur, right, he cuts off the ring like we get to see at the start of the first movies. And it's like, man, that would be so cool. That would be so cool. I would love to see that. But it really does make a lot of sense. Like, to reach that point of like, hey, we're in the battle, like the big battle against Sauron and his forces. Yeah, it's going to be pretty fucking tight. I'm gripping this like a penis. Okay, so next category, fire and shadow. Obviously, I talked about the books being a creature of shadow and fire. And shadow and flame. But in the movies, the Balrog has literal flame. He's not really as elemental. He is a physical flame. Like, a lot of his body is engulfed in those flames with a lot less shadow. Obviously, it's leaning towards the more fiery aspect because that is visually so disturbing to look at and so evil. Everybody knows fire. Ow, ooh, ow, hot. I don't know what the fuck that was. But, fire being hot and menacing and evil. And to kind of see that stuff is very visibly disturbing. Something that you wouldn't actually be able to do as much. I feel like in the books, to have more of a disturbing feeling, you would have to talk about it being shadowy. The shadowy darkness, because you can imagine the pitch black darkness of evil with small flickerings of flame. I mean, and your imagination can just run wild with that. But for the physicality in the movies, that flame, super, super important, especially with its massive hulking size. To have flames covering completely and to have the mastery, seemingly mastery of flames would be insane. Let's talk about the weapons, all right? So, obviously, we got the flaming whip. But the sword, as we talked about before in Tolkien's description, the sword was a flaming sword. In this one, it is kind of downplayed a lot, actually, to emphasize the whip. Now, the whip was the most important part of the Balrog in Tolkien's eyes. Like, obviously, swords are important. but the sword was an extension of the Balrog itself. You actually kind of got to see that in Rings of Power, which I really, really liked, which is why I hope people can give Rings of Power a second chance. It's not the Acolyte of Lord of the Rings. The Acolyte was just caca. But, you know, the Rings of Power was fucking amazing, and the second season was so good. I've got a bush turkey. Coming up. Their heads are like flames as well. Here, let me just... Brother, you're all good. He actually ran. I should have done a "You shall not pass." He's going over there. I think I'm in his nest. Anyways, so yeah, that flaming whip needed to be emphasized so much more for the movies, because that's such a visibly disturbing thing to look at. Like, everybody understands the flaming sword and how awesome that is, but a flaming whip is so different, and I think it really is what separates the ferocity of this creature. The fact that as he's falling, he can just whip this fiery whip that just grabs Gandalf by the ankles, yanks it with so much precision and skill in something that is seemingly so hard to use. Really, I mean, I've used whips. My dad, I grew up on a farm. I've used whips. He's shown me how to use it. Oh, I suck at them. I can do the whole... Oh, I can feel fucking... There we go. Yeah, I can do the whole... If I really try, and I can be willing to admit that I get hit like 50 fucking times. So let's talk about the movement, all right? Which, this is coming up... This is... the end. Wow. The end. We'll come to the conclusion after. The movement, all right? Super animalistic, roaring and charging like a beast with raw power and aggression. To see that visually as a beast, as a monster, the villain that it needed to be, it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. It's exactly what you needed. You needed something that you couldn't reason with. I think in Tolkien's universe, it seemed more reasonable. Like, you could potentially... there was an element of corruption. You could reason with them. This one, it feels like it was corrupted purely by hatred and flame, and it turned them into this beast, this roaring, disgustingly powerful beast, only rivaled by that of a dragon. You needed that. You needed that roaring, that unintelligible sign of anger and passion. Fuck! Makes me fucking horny. I love that shit so fucking much. So, conclusion. Let's conclude this bitch. The books. I kind of wrote something a little bit sexy. I know. I'm getting better at this. This is why I have to have my book. The books. Mysterious and otherworldly. Evoking fear. If I can fucking read my writing. Brother, I'm going to start again, because this needs to be gangster. Lock in, Jeremy. Books. Mysterious and otherworldly. Evoking fear through its ambiguity and elemental power. Yeah. That was good use of the English language. Movies. Visual spectacle of fire to impress and terrify through sheer scale and dramatic effects. A literal monster rather than an entity. Man! That's so fucking cool. Fuck, it makes me want to fucking commit seppuku. No, oh god, actually, I can't fucking... Every time I do this, I always regret it. Okay. I'm gonna call it there. I hope I fucking showed you guys how awesome the Balrog is. Hopefully I gave you a bit of a better idea about my favorite fucking monster, creature, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I love the Balrog. I think that is one of the best designs in any fictional universe of really anything. I mean, it's actually perfect. I think Peter Jackson did a beautiful job at depicting what it should look like visibly, to be able to create the effect of just fear and shadowy turmoil inside of you. But just on the screen, what Tolkien intended via the book. Love it. Absolutely love it. Lord of the Rings has been a universe that I am absolutely thriving in. I love it so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Blades and Beskar has been actually a highlight of my week so far. I really, really enjoy kind of talking about Lord of the Rings. It's not like going to become 100%, but I really like that it's a 50-50. It's kind of, I'm turning into a bit more of a nerd show. So, I'm kind of feeling like a little bit of a switch up. Maybe I should change my logo or something. No. No. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Genuinely, I hope you enjoyed this one. If I got anything wrong, which I hope I didn't, because it kind of felt really cool talking about it, let me know down below. Let me know how anything goes. If you guys want to see certain videos, if you want to see certain things, I hope you like this area. I have about 50 fucking Mozzie bites just because of it. So, love you all. Thank you so much for joining, and I will catch you in the next one. Remember, Blades and Beskar, new episodes every Wednesday, 7 p.m. AEDT. Don't know what the fuck that is, EST. Don't know what the fuck that is anywhere. But, I think it's like 11 p.m. Doesn't matter. I don't know. Love you so much. Thank you so much. And I will catch you in the next one. Ciao, bitches.